Welcome everyone to Fans on Fandom. I am super excited. I think, to be honest, just between you and me, I have been the most excited about this session of all the sessions in the conversation series that I have put together to celebrate the 7th anniversary of my branding and marketing consultancy. So thank you so much for joining. Now I'd like to introduce you to our panelists. We've got Sophie, who you might know on Instagram as Haim Source, Maggie, who's Haim Style on Instagram, who is the source for everything Haim wears. And I follow her because I love to look up all their fashion. And then we've got Sophie, who is on Twitter, who is Haim Source, who is amazing at posting it's like the BBC for Haim. It's just like a constant news feed of everything that's happening. And so it just kind of keeps us all up to date on what's going on in the Haim universe. So thank you both so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Tayel, who I had also invited, she is on Twitter and she does these amazing fan videos. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us today. And I wanted to talk about fandoms, not only because I love Haim and I wanted a chance to geek out with other Haim fans, but because I feel like they really need to be taken seriously. It's not just something that, young women are a part of, but they can really teach us about brand passion, community, loyalty, even betrayal, and innovation. And I feel like too often fandoms are talked about by so-called credential experts, so marketing experts like myself, for example, instead of actually talking to the fans themselves. So I wanted to kind of center fans in this conversation. So first off, my first question is, I came across this quote that really just shook me. So the comic book writer, Kelly Sue DeConnick, who I've actually never heard of before, told in an interview how scores of fans had emailed her photos of their tattoos. And I know I've seen a lot of Haim fans that get tattoos of their name or other things. And so to explain their motivation, the motivation of her fans, she quoted a friend's pithy comment. "You don't get that tattoo because you are a fan of something in the book. You get that tattoo because that book is a fan of something in you." And I just loved that sentiment. And so I wanted to ask you, as two people that run fan accounts, why the Haim fandom and not another band, and what is it in you that Haim is a fan of?
I can start. I think I came across Haim when I was about 14 or so. It was Days Are Gone, and I loved the music and everything like that. But then I remember what really hit it for me was I went on their social media and I watched all these interviews with them, and they were just so like it, and just watching them perform, it was so clear in the way that they carry themselves, how confident they are, and how they really just stick to themselves and what they do, and they're happy with what they're doing and what they're wearing. And I think just as a little 14-year-old, I was really drawn to that because you know what it's like to be 14. And yeah, just having someone there to be so just outstandingly themselves really hit me right in there. And yeah, that was really what drew me in.
And so
yeah, for me, so I'm also a sister of 3, and so ST's always kind of been my favorite, not only because I'm also the oldest sister, but I also play bass, and it's like seeing them, it's like, oh dang, I wish me and my siblings could do that, but we're not nearly as talented. So I think just like kind of seeing representation in the media of a Jewish woman as well, that was like one of the first times I kind of saw myself in pop culture, I guess, and it made me feel represented, and also it was just really good music, and eventually I became a really big fan.
Yeah, I think to kind of underscore what you're both saying, the sense of kind of authenticity and just visibility of kind of seeing yourself or someone. When I talk about Haim or when I think about Haim, one of the things that strikes me that seems to be different about them is that I feel like if I were the person on stage performing, they would be cheering me on. They would be in the audience cheering me on. And so there's this, I think, Maggie, when you mentioned kind of, they just are who they are and they're not apologetic. They don't try to put on a facade or act a certain way. I think that that's really powerful to people. And clearly it is to us. So I want to shift now. You know, obviously recently there was the big Ticketmaster debacle with Taylor Swift. Did anybody get tickets? Can you raise your hand? Or I actually did. All right.
You did?
Oh,
I did
sorry. So, sorry. So clearly, it was really divisive. I mean, first of all, it was insane. Like, it was so stressful, and you felt like you had gone to war or to battle, and it created a lot of anger. And one of the things I was kind of noticing as I was following the debate on Twitter is that there were kind of diehard, longtime Taylor Swift fans that were outraged that locals seemed to get access to pre-tail tickets, and they didn't. And so, to me, it really raised questions around kind of what is a true fan. Is it can anyone be a true fan? Who gets to call themselves a fan? And then, should fans be rewarded or expect to be rewarded based on their passion and their loyalty over the years with things like early access to concert tickets? So I'd love your perspective on this via the lens of Haim.
I mean, for me, I think that obviously I've been trying to like promote Haim for a while now, like, and it's funny because obviously like I want them to get more popular and stuff, but at the same time I kind of want to gatekeep them because I'm like I don't want to have to deal with like these issues. But in terms of like who's a true fan and stuff like that, I think that there's a lot of like casual listeners and they might call themselves a fan, but I totally get like where like people who have like dedicated so much more than just their Spotify Wrapped to a certain artist, where they might feel as though they deserve like some sort of perk because of that. And so in terms of like early access sales and stuff like that, I think that it makes sense for loyalty to be rewarded. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that artists owe us anything for being fans. And so that also has to kind of be understood in the conversation.
Can you say a little more about that? Why you don't think that the artists owe you anything?
Well, I mean, we choose to be fans of the artists, and I see a lot on Twitter, like when artists do something that fans don't necessarily like, they almost feel as though like the artist is obligated to like counsel them about it. And I understand where people are coming from with that, but at the same time, I think that sometimes it's almost like trying to control the artist. Like the artist is able to make their own decisions and stuff. I don't know. I've seen that a lot recently. Not necessarily with Haim though.
Yeah. What's your perspective, Maggie?
Well, I think Taylor Swift is a very interesting example here because just someone who's been so famous for so long, and I've been a fan of her for a really long time as well. And we've seen throughout her career people go from loving her and lifting her up to absolutely hating her and back and forth. And so it's like what we talked about earlier with, you see something in yourself in this person and in their music, and you really feel this emotional connection to them. So I do understand a bit of protectiveness of like, well, you were the person hating on her. I've been here this whole time. And it's not just the music. It is that you really do see themselves. The person really does see themselves in that. And I do think, I really like what you were saying, Sophie, about how they don't owe us anything. And I definitely do agree with that. Like, you're buying a CD, you're just buying the CD. You're buying a t-shirt, that's all you're buying. But again, Taylor Swift, I think, is an excellent example of this, because people are so quick to call like parasocial relationship, you don't really know her. But she's invited fans into her house. She's sent fans Christmas presents. So it definitely, people do feel a further connection with her than others might feel towards their favorite musicians. And I know Taylor Swift has done things in the past. I know the Reputation tour, she did a verified fan system that really worked, and it helps really keep the scalpers out. But we've learned allegedly that Ticketmaster did not allow that system this time around. And so it's just kind of hard to accept that no matter how much you do like the person, business does still play a huge part in this.
Yeah, and I think
a lot of it's about money.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, is that how much control does an artist have over that, right? Like, I think in what Taylor has, the statement that she's released, it seemed that she, that there were promises made to her and her team that Ticketmaster could handle the demand, and then clearly it was a disaster. To kind of bring it back to Haim, I know, I feel like, I think it was over the summer, maybe spring and summer, that, Sophie, you mentioned kind of that the band doesn't owe us anything, and that they have the right to make their own decisions. But there were a couple of times when Haim made choices that really contradicted kind of their image and the reason why fans love them. One was them playing at the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT concert, which I was I was shocked at how upset I got, because I think maybe because, one, I love Haim, but also because I do branding for a living. It's like, who thought what? Certainly there was another concert you could play at that was better a lot. Anyway, so I kind of went off. And then opening up were the Red Hot Chili Peppers, when the lead singer had admitted in an autobiography that he raped an underage girl. I saw a lot of fans being very upset that they would even play with them. So, did either of those impact you in any way, or kind of how do you make sense of that? I don't think Haim does it very often, that kind of a misstep. So these to me seem bigger because of that.
Yeah, I think that I don't like to acknowledge the fact that that NFT festival happened. I like to pretend that it does not exist, like, whatsoever. I did not post about it, But I think that in both of those cases, I'm assuming that they were probably in contracts of some sort, because I know that there was like a fan letter that was written about opening for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I believe that the band did see the letter, but they weren't really able to pull out. And so in these cases, I think that it's honestly a lack of awareness. And obviously, while we want to see better from the artists that we care about, I think that expecting them to be perfect and stuff just isn't really possible. So when it comes to stuff like this, for me, I really have to debate how much control I think that they have over it and stuff. Because if you have something like Kanye West, going on a podcast the other day and saying things like that he liked Hitler, obviously he had control over that. He used those words, and I don't listen to his music because of the things that he said. But with opening for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, personally, I'm a fan of their music, and I didn't know about the autobiography until very recently. And because I'm a huge fan, I'm guessing that it's very possible that they also were not aware of it.
Yeah. Maggie, what about you? Did these impact you?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. I had not heard about either of those events until very recently. I think us as a fandom did a really good job of forgetting about it. Yeah, it's like the Ticketmaster thing where it's just there's a lot of business decisions that go into play that probably the three girls don't have much of a say in, and you have to acknowledge that. And it's also just maybe they do know, and I don't know them. And it's like I love their music, I love them, but when it comes down to the end of the day, I've never met them, and I so it's just kind of having to like put a little distance between yourself and them to like kind of keep your feelings from getting hurt a little bit, because hearing things like that, you're like, oh, like I invested a lot of time in you and spent money on your music, so like, and not really with Haim, because I don't personally see them doing anything like this very often, but yeah, you get your feelings hurt a little bit, and so you have to practice a little bit of a boundary there, a little safe distance to protect yourself from that.
Do you think they should, in the way that kind of Taylor issued a statement after the Ticketmaster debacle, do you think that an artist, whether it's Haim or someone else, kind of owes it to the fandom to kind of, should they be, because one thing is, that NFT thing was so bonkers. It was like an alternate reality where you had like SD giving out her number to tech bros. It was just like, what is like, look, I know you just broke up. You're like ready to go. This is not the place for you. And you kind of wonder, were they totally oblivious to the fandom because they've kind of been off like Twitter, which is, I think, a platform where there's the most interaction. But should they, should they have someone on staff, a social media person who's following these conversations and kind of indicates when they should drop in and make a comment? Or do you think that's, going too far?
I mean, I think that would probably be smart for them to have some sort of communication, but at the same time, like social media can be so unhealthy, and like the things on my timeline, I'm like, oh, I don't want them seeing that, I don't think. And so in some ways, like I'm kind of glad that they aren't necessarily online as much in that way, but I think having someone on staff or on board who is able to communicate directly with the fans and get input on things is something that would be beneficial.
What do you think, Maggie?
I would not be totally surprised if that is not a thing that's already happening. They definitely don't interact as much, but I think it's safe to bet that they or someone else on their team is still there kind of keeping track of things. Okay. I will say though, there is kind of an effect there where sometimes when minor bumps happen like that don't gain a lot of publicity, I've seen sometimes saying things can make it worse.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Yeah. So I do see with a lot of public figures, sometimes they would rather just let things forget. And I mean, I've forgotten. So
sorry for bringing it back up.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of decisions behind the scenes that we're definitely not seeing when it comes to things like that.
Yeah. So, we're fans of Haim. I have not started a fan account, but you two have. So there's a certain level of commitment that you have taken on. And so I'm wondering kind of why did you start it? What was the tipping point between kind of listening to the music and going to the shows and deciding I want to create a social media account dedicated to this band?
I've been a fan of their music, like I said, for a really long time, and I am studying fashion and fashion merchandising right now. And for me, like the moment I would say that really made me really just admire their fashion sense is I've always admired the way they dress, but for me it was the Vogue video that they did last year with the 7 outfits and the 7 days, and just listening to them talk about the things that they wear. I really admire, they're all very knowledgeable about fashion. They know the designers, they know the history that goes into that. And like, they don't take it lightly, the things that they wear. It's all very planned out. It's all very sentimental to them too. And that's really what just made me be like, oh, I want to like talk about this. I want to have a little, it's like an outlet, and there's a little community there too, just
Yeah.
to talk about those things.
Yeah, and it dovetails perfectly into what you're studying. So it seems like it
Yeah.
would be really helpful, just both with what you're studying and your career ahead of you, to
Yeah,
have
it's
knowledge.
definitely helped me in my studying too, and my studying has helped me with the account. So they help each other.
And Sophie, what about you?
For me, I've been a fan also for like a long time around that time period. And I started the account initially because I wanted to have like an archive of their Instagram stories because usually they're kind of funny and I like to like look back at them as like memes and stuff. But I didn't have anywhere where I could like, because I didn't have storage on my phone, so I had to upload it somewhere else. And I was like, wait, I could just do this hand in hand with kind of doing updates as well, since there was a Haim update account on Twitter, but it wasn't very active for the most part. And so I started it right around the time of, I think, Now I'm in It and Hallelujah, maybe. And so they were doing things that needed to have updates on. So it worked out. It worked out.
I love
Is
that.
it like, is it a big time commitment? I mean, how do you find time? I mean, I'm just like, I am blown away by all of the, your accounts. There are other people doing fan videos or memes, or it just, the amount of creativity just blows my mind. And so is that, yeah, how do you just logistically, like, how do
Yeah.
you figure out time for all this?
At one point in time, I was definitely putting in more effort. Like, I'm a justice studies major. I'm a full-time student, but I also do graphic design on the side. So I was making like little like promo things like around the time of the Grammys, also with like licorice pizza. And so when I do have extra time, sometimes I'll do stuff like that or stuff with like their Spotify statistics, like just because I find it fun. But outside of that, it isn't too hard. I usually like look through like the Haim search tag on Twitter, and when I see something, I'll just like tweet about it. And I think that I would probably be doing that either way. I just wouldn't have an account that I would be posting about it on, if that makes sense.
Right, right.
So it's definitely a balance, but it's manageable for me.
And what about you, Maggie?
For me, it's been tricky, definitely, because I definitely want it to stay as something that's fun, as something that's a hobby. And so sometimes that means logging off for a couple of weeks. I have not posted in a couple of weeks. We have finals right now, so that's why. I do see a lot of other style accounts, and if you look through their comments, and it's just vicious. It's people being like, "Where's this from? Why haven't you posted this yet?" And I've been really lucky. I think our community has been very kind to me and very gentle there. I don't think I've ever had anyone demand something, but people have asked for things, and I'm like, I have no hope of finding that. And yeah, so it's a lot of fun, and yeah, it's something that's fun for me, and I want to keep it fun. So setting those boundaries has been very helpful there.
Do you, I mean, one thing that really amazes me about fandoms is people like you and others invest lots of time, and it's unpaid, right? You're doing it because it's fun, it's your passion. And so I'm, wondering kind of what you get out of it, kind of what motivates you. And I think this is particularly interesting to me because they're now not necessarily bands, but brands who are looking at ways to monetize fandoms because they recognize that uh, a musical artist or a TV show or a game or whatever it is can't be successful without a fan base. A company can't be successful without customers, right? It's the same thing. So if there are people in that community that are helping to promote the brand, shouldn't they be kind of recognized in some way, whether through money or shares or something like that? So is, kind of, how do you think of it? What kind of, what do you get out of it, since it's not like Haim has you on the payroll, and they are reimbursing
Or
you
do
for all
they?
the
No.
work.
For me, so obviously the community that I've built, of like Haim Stan Twitter and stuff is super fulfilling because before I had made that account, I had made a group chat initially. There was like maybe 10 people in it, and since then, like the fandom has grown so much and the band has grown so much, and it's been super cool seeing that and like getting new people in my mentions. But in terms of like actual, I guess, reward for it. Um, I obviously don't get paid or anything. I think it would be cool if I could be like affiliated with them, but I don't know if that would ever happen. But like sometimes SD will like my tweets. It hasn't happened in a while. But sometimes that I've been like reposted by them a few times and it's always like super cool when that happens.
Yeah, I would have to agree there. It's definitely, I mean, it's all for the sense of community. It's just to be able to
Mhm.
interact with people who feel the same way about the same music that you do. And that's really nice, of course. With me though, I have had a couple like cool opportunities come up with this account. Like I will post like, "Oh, they wore this brand," and I'll tag the brand because I always do. And sometimes the brand will message me and be like, "Oh, thanks for posting." And we'll like kind of have a little chat there. And like I said, I'm studying fashion merchandising, so like to be able to make those connections has been really cool so far. And I have seen bigger style accounts that I'm definitely like, I don't know if they're on the artist payroll, but I think they're on someone's payroll. Like there's something going on there. But obviously, even if that was never an option, I would still be doing this because, like I said, the sense of community is so nice.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Is that, and I think it's something that I find really magical about fandoms. It's the sort of self-organizing communities that like the artist doesn't have to be a part of it, right? Because it's really about a shared sense of passion and people coming together. That is, I think, so powerful and becomes the engine for all of this passion projects and passion work, right? That you kind of do out of your own heart, and you get and you also feel like you're getting something back. You're not just kind of wasting your time. So I think that's really amazing. Angeline had a question in the chat that I wanted to ask you. So she said she's wondering if other people ever feel self-conscious or concerned that their passion as a fan for Haim or someone else feels unhealthy or weird in terms of how much time and emotion they invest. I feel like this is a kind of theme I've seen in lots of different places. Parasocial relationships seem like a new development in our culture. How do other people make sure their passion as a fan is a positive thing in their life and not a negative one? And I will say, because I'm older, and so when I was a teenager, my fan crush was Duran Duran. So I don't know if you remember them, that you definitely dates me. And even though there was no social media back then, it still was like a parasocial relationship because there were fan clubs and there were that you would you would actually join and you would have to communicate via snail mail and you would get special, like you join the fan club and then they would give you, like they'd send you merch. And so I think what was missing was you had the parasocial relationship because you felt very close to this person or group, but they have no, like in your head, they have no clue as to who you are. What was missing was the community. I had no way to connect to other fans that weren't like geographically in my town. So what do you think about kind of how concerned are you or conscious are you about how intense your passion gets and making sure that it's still something that's enjoyable and fun versus something that might be unhealthy?
I think that's a really great question because I've been kind of in fandom since I was a little like 11-year-old girl. And in middle school I was the Taylor Swift girl and everyone knew I was the Taylor Swift girl. And I think Taylor Swift herself has a really great, I don't know the exact quote, but she said something along the lines of like, the worst type of person in the world is someone who's going to shame you for being excited about something. And that really, when she said that, that really struck with me. And like, don't let, like, these, like, you're happy, you love this thing, and you're gonna let someone make you feel bad for being excited about something. Like, that's so backwards and so silly. And I think, I will say, I think a lot of me being able to accept that quote is just growing up. When I was 15, I would not have taken that seriously. I would have wanted to be the coolest person in the room. But just as I've gotten older, it's really just, yeah, just don't let anyone hate you or make you feel bad for something you're excited about. It's so silly.
That's really,
For
really
sure.
yeah.
The other thing I think you kind of mentioned earlier is just like having boundaries in place too and stuff. Like I remember there's been like a couple different times where I've been like, maybe this is affecting like my regular life a bit more than it should. And so like I'll like tweet, hey guys, can't be posting updates even though there's an event going on right now because I have to take a test or something like that, you know, and I have to like turn off my phone. And I mean, it's
Mhm.
common sense, but at the same time, sometimes like it's like, oh, I really want to know like what's going on right now. And so I have to have those boundaries just like for myself, not like for anyone else, just like around myself in order to make sure that I'm not um, allowing anything to interfere with uh, my life more than it should.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. I am super impressed. I don't know if I would have been able to set those boundaries when I was in college. Even now, I feel like it's really hard because with social media or just the internet, right? You can be there when it's happening so easily. And so I think it's setting those boundaries and kind of unplugging is even more crucial. So I think that's really amazing that you're able to do that. Let's see. Um, so I was thinking about kind of fandoms and bands in relation to art. And I have a background in art history, and there's this belief that an art is not complete in and of itself. It takes the viewer to complete it. That the viewer is an active participant in the art. And so that really kind of encapsulates how I feel about fandoms. Is that and this goes back to what you were saying about the importance of community, Maggie. That I love Haim and their music, but so much of my enjoyment of them comes from seeing all the creative, amazing things that other fans do and I am just so amazed at the creativity. It just blows me away from the in jokes and the memes and the videos and all of it. I just feel like those are, amazing creative output in their own right. And it's really inseparable from my love of the band. And so that sense of community gives me kind of a depth of experience around Haim that I wouldn't have was I not aware of it. And so I'm wondering from your perspective, is that should there be some way for Haim and artists, bands in general, to kind of recognize the contribution that fans and fandoms make to their art?
It's always cool when they repost something. I remember once, like, I got like a bunch of DMs from one of my friends because SD had reposted one of my TikToks like to promo for the tour. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow. But and it was super exciting and stuff. And so it's nice to be acknowledged, obviously. And I think I've said that before too. And I'll say it again because it is. But at the same time, actually, I think that's all I have to say. I don't think there's any at the same time. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sophie captured that well. It's nice to be acknowledged. It's nice to, like, when they repost something, or my favorite is their TikTok comments. I think are always really funny, and they'll always be replying in there and liking comments. And I think this fandom is so funny, and they're so creative, and so, like, how could they not, really? But yeah, even without that, the community is still really great, and everyone's so funny and fun and kind.
Yeah. You also get feedback from like other fans too, even if it's not directly from the band themselves. Like hearing other people be like, "Oh, this is super cool." Like that's also like really rewarding.
Yeah.
I think you both mentioned that. I think it's come up as a few times, is that how nice the fandom is. And it's funny. So when I saw them, I'm based in the DC area. So when I saw them on tour here, um, there was a guy, like a Lyft driver, who had started a Twitter account rating the fans of bands that he was like carting around town. And the way he captured the Haim fans were just like hilarious. I mean, hilariously true, because it's like they're just so nice and pleasant and polite, you know. And it's just like that sums them up. um, and what do you know, compared to, I think, other fandoms where there's like so much drama constantly, and there seem to be kind of different factions. Why do you think that is? Why do you think you know, is it a reflection of the band, or do they sort of model behavior, or what, you know, how did we end up with such an amazingly nice group of people?
I will say, I think part of it is that they've been able to keep themselves pretty low key. Like what you were saying,
Yeah.
Sophie, like you don't like you want people to like them, but also you want to gatekeep. And so we've got a pretty like good sized circle here. And I think there's kind of a mentality of like, well, everyone will get a chance, you know, like everyone will get their moment to be noticed. So I think that's what kind of keeps us from going a little crazy. Like I saw them last summer live, and I was right behind the barricade. And partway through the concert, the girl who was right in front of me was like, "Do you guys want to go stand right in front?" And we were like, "Oh my gosh, like thank you." And yeah, I think it definitely is just like understanding like everyone will get their time, everyone will get a chance. There's no reason to go crazy about anything like that.
Yeah, there's not like competition like there is in other fandoms that are like super big and stuff. And so I think that because of that, like we're all kind of just able to all be friends and like, get along for the most part. And also I do think that the band itself, like they cultivate kindness a lot, or try to. And I think that hopefully that's also part of the reason why we're able to be civil with each other and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
I will say I think they're just able to they don't take themselves very seriously, and they
Yeah.
laugh at themselves, and I think that gives us the ability to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I think that's what I discovered them in like the winter of 2021, so almost a year ago. So I'm really late to the game. And I like randomly, I don't even know how it happened. It was maybe it was like a Haimaka video or something that I came across on Twitter. And I was like, can I go hang out with these women? Like these are my people. Like that was my first thought. Like they don't, like, they like having fun. They don't take themselves too seriously. They're not afraid of embarrassing themselves. They're, you know, what you see is what you get. And I think that it's great to see that kind of translating into the community around them too.
Absolutely.
So here's another question from uh, the, the the people here, is from Amy. What lessons from fandoms can any of you apply to your professional or personal lives?
I'm trying to think.
That's a really great question. I
I
mean,
think it depends on the fandom that
Yeah.
you're in, kind of sometimes. Boundaries, obviously, as we were talking about earlier, is a big one.
yeah, I think that goes really well for the two of us too, because we kind of play a role a little bit, you know, like
Hmm.
what are they doing? What are they wearing? And unlike a job, we don't get paid for it, like we talked about. So I think it really is, yeah, just setting those boundaries and that's just really an important lesson to learn in any career. And, you know, communicating and learning how to communicate respectfully too. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, respect is a big one. I think like sometimes like I'll see certain things like regarding like the sisters, and I'll specifically like choose not to post them if I think that like it might like not be something that um necessarily needs to be shared or whatever. You know, like if there's like private photos posted somehow, like I'll choose not to repost that, obviously. And I think that sometimes like people will struggle with that. Like I remember, I think it was like someone had like private photos like reposted by a fan account, and then the fan account like had gone like private and stuff, and it was like a whole big like fiasco. And so obviously I try to avoid that, but not only because I don't want to be caught up in chaos, but because I want to respect the boundary between their personal lives and their public lives.
That's amazing. I'm at a loss for words because I think it's such a different way of looking at artists. I feel like than earlier generations, my generation included, where you kind of you didn't. I mean, you thought of them as people, but it's you didn't have the same access that you do now because of social media, and so. It felt a little more frenzied when you would encounter them. And I think because there is that access, there's a level of maturity that fans have in a sense that I feel like was not there before, that it's really kind of respecting these are human beings with their own lives. They don't exist to please me or to, you know, whatever. That even though their success would have been impossible without fans, there's still a boundary that we have to respect. And I think that's really, and I don't know that all fandoms are like that. So I think that's really admirable that the Haim fandom is like that.
I think another one of the reasons why we all get along pretty well is because a lot of us are more mature. Like I know with Taylor Swift fans, there's like a lot of younger ones. And I mean, like that's totally cool and stuff. But because I think the majority of us are older than 13,
Right.
we can we have a bit more development in social skills and stuff, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Where do you think, where would you like to take your fan accounts? Kind of how do you envision it, you know, down the road or a few years from now? Do you think it's something that you'll, like after college, that you'll keep doing, or do you think it'll morph into something else?
I mean, my love for like Haim has gone this long. Usually, like I'll get like fixations on random things, but then usually like they're gone after a little bit. But Haim has kind of gone strong, and so I do think that I'll continue supporting them in some way, even uh, years ahead. With that said, I don't necessarily know like if I'll be upkeeping the account. I've been looking about like maybe getting like a co-admin and stuff, just like in general, because I don't necessarily have the time that I used to have. It would be cool if, because I know I'm kind of rambling a lot during this session. Sorry about that. But I know that like Taylor Swift has like the Taylor Nation account, or like there's like the Harry Styles headquarters and stuff. And so I've always thought that like some sort of even if it's not me who's doing it, some sort of like direct source for the band would be pretty cool to have.
Yeah.
Because that way like it's more, I guess, verified instead of just a random Twitter account that happens to have information.
Yeah. That's a great point. Maggie, what about you?
Yeah, I think this is really, for me, I've kind of struggled here of just, there's two things I really, really love. I love fashion and I love Haim. So I see myself continuing to do it, maybe taking breaks here and there as I already do, but I have no plans at the moment to stop. I have thought about just with social media and things change so quickly, like I don't know how long Instagram's going to be around.
Yeah.
And
Twitter.
so like the possibilities, Twitter, we had a scare a few weeks ago with Twitter.
I know.
Just I have though thought about like maybe like I maybe start a blog one day and we could like talk there, something like that. I don't know, but yeah, I don't see, and it might shift into other things as like we talk more about their fashion or more about their music, or I don't know, I could see it going any type of way, but yeah, no plans to stop as of right now.
Well, it sounds like Tumblr might be going back. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tumblr's fun.
That would be fun. I would love to go back to Tumblr. Can we all do that?
I've already started to. I made, okay, this is like a flex, but like a year ago, I made a like I did coding to make like a song organizer basically, and it's like so cool. Like I'm very proud of myself for doing this. I don't know why I did this, why I put in so much time, but it's attached to the Tumblr blog that I do have, and it's basically like you can like look through like their discography and then like sort through it by like the genre, by like the mood and stuff, and I need to update it for like new songs, but like it's so cool.
That's so cool.
is there a way to access that?
Yeah, I think it only works on desktop probably, but I can try to find it and put it in the chat.
Dude, it's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So in kind of researching fandoms for our conversation, was looking at examples of bands that had created their own artist-run fan community. So you have like Swift Life, but even in the like 90s, David Bowie had Bowie.net, which kind of was the first one to try to do this. So that where the artists would run the fan communities and they would have perks like chats with the artists, exclusive releases, other exclusive content. DavidBowie.net even allowed you to have a DavidBowie.net email account, which was really cool. And so I wanted to know from your perspective, you know, where should fandoms live and happen? Right now, they're kind of dispersed across all of these different social networks. Do you think, should there be like a dedicated community platform, or is kind of being in all these different decentralized across different social platforms okay?
I love the centralized platforms. I've been on Swift Life. Before Swift Life, there was something called Taylor Connect. That's way back in the day. But I was on both of those. I think they're so much fun, and I think it's easier to like keep things moderated too. Like things stay nice, people stay
right
in their own lane, you know, and I haven't had a problem with them. I know they are very expensive and hard for the person to upkeep. So that's why I think a lot of them have not lasted very long, but if it would be really cool if we could have something like that.
Yeah, I agree with that for the most part. I do like having decentralized platforms a little bit though, because that way you can find people who like might not be like huge listeners, you know, and who might not be a fan yet. Because if you're not a fan yet, you're probably not going to like download an app specifically for the artist, but you still might encounter people who are fans on somewhere like Twitter or Instagram and then become a fan or something like that. And so it's nice to kind of meet people of varying levels of interest and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, you know, each platform has its own kind of way of interacting. So, you know, like we behave really differently on Twitter than we do on Instagram. There's different kinds of interactions that are possible. And so I think it is interesting, you know, you kind of grab it, like obviously, Sophie, you're on Twitter, Maggie, you're on Instagram. Makes sense because you do fashion, it's visually based. And Sophie, you're about news, so they're updates, right? Which plays to the, so I think, I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer, but I was just interested to see kind of your perspectives. And it's nice, Maggie, to hear your experience with the Taylor run communities and how that's worked out. Because I think a lot of corporate brands do that, right? And they dedicate money and time and resources to it. And it's interesting that with an artist, you've got, you know, do they pay for it? Does their label pay for it? Does their like, I think it gets a little more complicated in terms of how is it going to operate. Mark Ross had a question. Hey, Mark. 2 decades out, where do you see fandoms going? Can you foresee a Haim cruise, for example, or a fantasy camp recording session? Well, I can tell you, I would love all of those things to happen. Maybe not a cruise. I'm not a big cruise person, but like a Haim band camp or something would be fun.
Yeah, that'd be
so
super
fun.
cool. Honestly, like whatever you can imagine, uh, I think is possible. Like I remember I made this like list a while ago of like things that I want to happen, but that probably won't. And one of them was Haim being nominated for Album of the Year, and then that happened. And one of them was like Alana in the PTA film, and then that happened.
What?
So, you know, you can just manifest it into reality.
Okay, we need to submit our ideas to you so you can manifest
Yeah.
them, because
What else are you gonna manifest for us?
I did also, I remember, okay, so for Haimaka, this is also a big flex, is I replied to their tweet. They had like said like, oh, who do you want to see like featured or whatever? And I had like written like as a joke, like Taylor Swiftowitz or something, you know, like and then the clap came the next day. Nobody, no crime. Bam.
That is kind of insane.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have that tweet like saved. Like it's gonna be framed
You
one
could
day.
frame a tweet, yeah.
I have a bunch. This is a tell on me. When the fandom tweets at me, that it's like I'm like, what? You know I exist? I remember there was one person on Twitter, because I was just kind of low key. I wasn't really interacting, and this person called me out as a Haim fan, and it's like, do you see me? What? It's like, I've got to print this out and put it on a t-shirt. Are there any other things like blue sky thinking, you know, where that would, like, obviously we wouldn't want them to host an NFT conference for us, but like what would make sense in the future, you know, some kind of amazing experience that they could engineer for us?
I think it's going to be really interesting. I don't know what, but just we're definitely seeing a shift in social media right now, and that is where a lot of fandom things happen already. So we could, I don't know. I've been to lately a lot of, like, you go to a bar or a club and it's like a Taylor Swift night and they only play her music and it's so fun and you get to make friends there. I would love to see things like that happen with Haim. That would be so fun.
Yeah. Any other ideas?
For sure. I mean, they're already like shifting into the film industry a lot more, like with Alana acting and with SD composing and stuff. And so, I mean, maybe we'll see some like EGOT type stuff. I don't know.
They've talked about, I want to see this one day. They've talked about themselves how the Danielle movie is going to be so crazy.
Yes.
And the Danielle biopic that I would love to see made one day.
Well, my fantasy that I want you to manifest, Sophie, is that I want them to DJ a big party for us.
That'd be fun.
So it's not necessarily them performing, but they're such amazing DJs. Oh, karaoke, and throw some karaoke in with that.
Yes.
That would be so fun.
Ariel has a question. Would you want to turn this hobby into your profession, either working for the band or for an agency, you know, whatever, or do you see the fan work as pure hobby?
I mean, if it has the potential, I think that would be cool. But my current career path is law, and so I don't necessarily see that happening very likely. But I do think of it as like a tiny bit more than a hobby, though, since I do put a lot of like work and effort into it, and it does feel like there is like more payoff than just like me being happy that I did it.
Yeah, for me, I mean, what I do aligns pretty well with what I hope to do once I graduate. So if I were to get any sort of opportunity like that, I think I'd have to take it. But even if that doesn't happen, I'm still happy doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have to ask this question. Though the Haim sisters are straight, they are in many ways a queer icon or icons and objects of queer thirst, which is kind of interesting. What's your take on this? How do you think it shapes or not shapes or impacts the fandom?
I mean, I think it's great if anyone can find anything in themselves in something else, you know? And even if they are straight, people can listen to their music and like find pieces of themselves that they identify with, even if it's not something that Haim themselves identifies with. I think that's great.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw like the Sister tour with Lizzo, but Lizzo and Esty would do this combined performance of The Girl Is Mine instead of The Boy Is Mine, and it was incredible. And it definitely did not feel very straight too. And so I think in some ways, while none of them have dated women, I think that there definitely are alignments with queer people, if that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, they're very proud and supporters of the queer community too and stuff. So I don't know. I've always kind of seen them aligned with LGBTQ plus, even if they haven't necessarily called themselves it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of goes to how welcoming they are and how, you know, that they just embrace everyone. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it just kind of that translates into when other people interact with them or create their own fan art or memes and interpret them in different ways. I think they actually take joy in it. I remember at the beginning of their tour, I think the tweet was meant to be kind of obnoxious, which is like, oh, all you do is wear triangle bras. And then they made the TikTok. It's like, yeah, here we are. So I think it goes back to kind of they don't take themselves too seriously. They don't like things don't impact them personally. Oh, someone just wrote in the chat, what about that video of Esty being like, I am down for all?
That's true.
So we have just a minute or so. So I want to ask you the final question, which is, to what extent has the Haim fandom affected you or even changed your life?
I mean, for me, oh my goodness, sorry about that alarm. The album Something to Tell You was like really important to me in like 2017 and stuff, and so they've helped me get through a lot, and I know the same can be said for like so many other fans and stuff. Like their music is just really meaningful, and I think it's also kind of forced me to try to bond more with my own sisters because you know I like see their relationship and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be so separated from them, you know.
That's lovely.
That's so sweet. Yeah. I mean, the same thing for me. It's, you know, we can all connect with the music. For me, their music has always been kind of like when you're in a funk and you need to listen to the fun songs to get yourself out of bed, like that type of thing. And so it's been really helpful for me there. I keep talking about this community, but I just need to credit this community because it's just been so nice to have people to talk to. And yeah, I mean, for me personally, having this account has really made me feel more confident in my own career choice because I'm doing this work now and I love it and it's so fun. And I'm like, okay, like I could do this. I could do something like this forever. And yeah, so it definitely has changed my life for sure.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Sophie. It was such a pleasure to meet you virtually in person, or put faces to accounts, the faces behind the accounts. And thank you all who came today. I really appreciate your questions. And it was great to have you here. As I mentioned, I will share a link to the video recording if you want to replay it and relive our session of Haim, Passion, and Love. So thank you so much and have a great day and a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. It was great meeting you guys.
Thank you guys. Yeah, it was so fun.
All right, bye.
Bye.